Thank you so much, Wesley, and you will hear from him again. At this time, we will have our welcome and introduction by Dr. Gloria Johnson Spruill.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining the Suffolk, Virginia chapter of the Links Incorporated for our webinar this evening, The Price We Pay for Beauty. As Mrs. Pamela Jones Watford introduced, I am Dr. Gloria Johnson Spruill, Chair of the Health and Human Services Facet. This facet, along with National Trends in Services and the Arts Facets, represents the participants featured in our webinar this evening. The Umbrella Committee is proud to host this webinar. We want to thank you, Mr. Wesley Wilkins, for providing us with such beautiful music this evening. He is the son of Miss Andrea Wilkins. He also has joining him this evening his grandmother, Cynthia Roster, and his piano teacher, Latoya Britton. He is a student at the Jubal Arts program at the East End Baptist Church and has been there for many years, where he has become a wonderful pianist and saxophonist. We thank you again, Mr. Wilkins, for joining us for 2 of our webinars. We are delighted this evening to present one of our very own, a Suffolkian, Miss Rhonda Smith, who will share valuable information about beauty products many of us are unaware of, many containing many toxic chemicals and that are unregulated and may expose us to cancer and health problems. I look forward to this presentation and learning more. Ms. Pamela Jones Watford, our cancer representative from the Health and Human Services Facet, will be our moderator for this evening. I now present to you Mrs. Pamela Jones Watford.
Good evening, everyone. We're so delighted to have you here with us. This is our 3rd of our series of webinars that the Health and Human Services Facet, along with our umbrella committees, presenting on cancer. And this is one you will not want to miss. We are going to talk about the cost of beauty. And for the ladies up here, you know, we spend a lot of money just to look good. We spend money on hair products, things for our face, things to make us look smooth and all beautiful. But we're finding out now that these things contain a lot of chemicals that are dangerous for our health. So you will learn a great deal this evening. We have a very person with a lot of information that's going to share with us, and we're so excited to have her here. I knew her as a little girl when she used to come to my godparents' home all of the time. So I'm not going to go much into detail about her because we have someone that is going to introduce her. But we ask that you will actually become involved in this webinar. We're going to have a pre-assessment just to see how much you know on the cost of being beautiful. And like I said, I know again, we pay a lot of money, hair products, even if we are natural, we still put a lot of money into those products to make sure that we look good. The makeup that we wear, the lotions that we wear, and all that we utilize. So it's actually a little dangerous. So we're going to learn some information so that we will know how to protect ourselves from getting cancer. So we thank you for being here this evening. And at this time, we're going to have what we call a pre-assessment test. Please, please participate. It will just let you know exactly how much you know about this information, and if you know or if you don't know. So you will learn some information from the presentation. We only have 5 questions. We ask that you participate. We are going to allow you to assess your awareness of the cost of beauty. And I know that's not the title of the webinar, but that's how I look at it. Because I say it's the cost of beauty, the price that we pay to become beautiful. We have 5 questions that we ask that you will, and I'm just going to read a few of them for you. The first one is, melanoma is the deadliest type of skin cancer, with 75% of all skin cancer deaths within the U.S. attributed to it. The second question is, human exposure to bisphenol occurs primarily through exposure through the sun. The third question is, all products that are fragrance-free are normally safe. Our fourth question is, fragrances are made up of dozens, sometimes hundreds of chemicals that are omitted from personal care and cleaning product labels. And our fifth question is, nail polishes that include formaldehyde, toluene, and dimetol should be avoided. Okay, test your knowledge. And just scroll down if you don't see all of the questions in front of you. And then hit submit. All right, did everyone finish? Okay. And I'm just gonna ask, we have 20 participants. All right. I'd like to ask you, as we go, we're getting ready to get into our webinar. We're going to hear another selection from Wesley and then go to our presentation. If you would please mute your mics so that we can hear all of this good information that will be offered to us this evening. At this time, we're going to have another selection from Wesley Wilkins. Great job, Wesley. Thank you. I think I played that song 100 years ago when I took piano lessons. Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right, at this time, we're going to move forward and we will have the introduction of our guest speaker by Patricia Richard Spruill. And after the introduction, our guest speaker will give us that information that we've all been waiting for.
Good afternoon. My name is Patricia Lynn Richard Spruill, and I'd like to take a moment of personal privilege to say the speaker for this evening is very dear to me. Rhonda M. Smith actually grew up in my backyard. We were neighbors. So I'm so proud to present her this evening as the young woman that she has become professionally. Rhonda is a 13-year breast cancer survivor and has parlayed her experience into a passion for community engagement, advocacy, and policy work to address health disparities. Rhonda currently serves as the executive director of the California Black Health Network. She was the executive director of the LifeServe Youth Foundation, and she also served as the interim executive director for Integrative Medicine for the Underserved, the IM4US. Prior to her tenure with IM4US, Rhonda was a consultant project director for the Live Healthy OC Initiative, a 3-year initiative that aimed to transform the model of care of a network from a disease-focused treatment model to prevention and wellness model, providing whole person care approach. Before that, Rhonda served as a consultant statewide project manager for the Susan G. Komen Circle of Promise California Initiative, an intensive 4-year effort to identify evidence-based strategies to decrease the high mortality rate of African-American women diagnosed with breast cancer, and to address disparities of the system, community, and on individual levels. Rhonda earned her MBA in Marketing and Operations Management from the Darden School of Business at the University of Virginia. And her BS degree she earned in Civil Engineering from Virginia Tech. Without further ado, I introduce to you my little cousin, my little neighbor, who will present in her own way. I look forward to hearing her, and I'm sure you all will enjoy as well. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Lynn. And I have to say, every time I see anything related to Dr. Doolittle, I always think of you. So that's an inside joke between me, her, and Penny. And so I want to thank you all for the opportunity to spend some time with you this evening to share information about some things that we just take for granted that are part of our normal day-to-day life, but seems innocent, but can cause harm to us. And so, you know, we talk a lot about breast cancer and breast cancer education and getting your mammograms, but a lot of things we don't talk about, especially in the Black community, is how things in the environment really affect our health and well-being. And so I'll talk about some of those things today. And then also I wanted to just clarify things. So what information I'm going to share today actually comes from an organization that I am on the board of directors for called the Breast Cancer Prevention Partners. And they do a lot of work to really educate the community about what you can do to prevent breast cancer from happening and minimize your risk of breast cancer. Well, there's no surefire way to prevent breast cancer, but there are things that we can do that are within our power and control that we can be mindful of to minimize our risk. My day job is as the executive director of the California Black Health Network, like Lynn mentioned, and we do a lot of work on a day-to-day basis to really prevent Black people from dying from diseases they shouldn't be dying from. So we do a lot of work to educate the community, to improve health literacy, so that people are better able to navigate through the system of care, to understand what they can do to engage in self-care to prevent diseases from happening, and also to manage their disease better and prevent disease progression. We also get involved in a lot of policy work at the state level to really improve access to care, and not just access alone, but also access to quality care, so that ultimately we are able to experience what equitable care looks like. So we've been doing a lot of work lately to really address that and what happens at the system level when we go to seek care, so that we can eliminate racial bias and racism at the system level. So hopefully over the next year, I'll be able to report something new that we've been able to do to move on the policy front in that regard. So I'll get into what the topic is for today. And so I was asked to talk about the price we pay for beauty. So if you can pull up the presentation, that would be great. Whoever the magic wizard is behind the scenes, Vera, yes, thank you. So yeah, thank you. Let me move you guys out of the way for a second. Yes. Okay, so, you know, we talk a lot about our hair and beauty, and as Pamela talked about, you know, we do spend a lot of money and a lot of time making ourselves more beautiful. I mean, before my breast cancer diagnosis, I had long hair and spent a lot of time at the hair salon, dyeing my hair, getting permed, and also just a lot of money to do all of that. But I was not cognizant of what harm that could potentially bring to me. Now, I don't know if spending all that time and having chemicals applied to my scalp was the cause of my breast cancer, but I think there probably were some things and factors that were a part of my life that contributed to increasing my risk of breast cancer. So I'll talk about what some of those are shortly. So if you can go to the next slide, please. So yeah, so this slide it's about this article that was written, I think about 5 or so years ago, called Beauty and the Beast. And I believe I've shared this along with a couple other links with Jackie. And so she'll be able to share that with everybody after the presentation today. And so, you know, we talk about how much money it costs for us to get beautified, but no one really talks about the real price we pay for all of that, and how, you know, predatory marketing practices are always prevalent in the Black community, whether it's related to cigarettes, and especially when it comes to menthol cigarettes, and how really menthol cigarettes, which are the most dangerous cigarettes, are really the ones that are marketed to the Black community more so than any other community. And here there are hair care products that are marketed to us that seem like, you know, they're really healthy and helpful for us, but the reality is they can contain harmful chemicals that can do harm to our health and well-being. So next slide. And so I wanted to share this with you all too, because there's also an article that I sent to Jackie to share with you guys to talk about, you know, overexposed and underprotected. And so it really talks about, you know, what chemicals are in hair care products that we take for granted, and how much money, you know, Black women do spend every year and contribute to the success of other companies, so that, you know, we can look beautiful and we can have the kind of hair that we want. And so when we do that, we get exposed to a lot of harmful chemicals. One in category is called endocrine disrupting chemicals. And they interfere with our hormone production. And those are the types of chemicals that increase our risk of breast cancer. So when we talk about hormone-driven cancers, in women, it's breast cancer, and men, it's prostate cancer. And so there's information that Jackie, again, will share with you that relates more specifically to some of the details of this study. But I thought it would be important to have as a leave behind, so that in your leisure, if you wanted to find out more information, you'll be able to get at the more granular level about some of these chemicals and what harms they bring to us. So next slide, please. And so I'll share some of the key findings from that report. And one is that hair care products that were tested contain about 45 endocrine disrupting and asthma associated chemicals, including chemicals that in some other countries are banned. And so in California, there's a bill called Proposition 65. And so basically that's like the warning label that you see on the pack of cigarettes. And so when you go into some establishment or go to purchase products, companies are required to display a warning sign that if you consume this product or purchase this product, you're exposing yourself to chemical risk. And so even in Starbucks, you're drinking coffee at your own risk. And I remember the first time I saw this, I went to a Starbucks store and there was a sign on the counter that talked about this and all the harmful chemicals that are in, again, another product that we take for granted every day. That contains a lot of chemicals that can bring harm to us. And so at least in California, we know what we're getting into when we go to purchase products, and we have some sort of system in place to warn people and give them more information about the products that they are consuming. And so relaxers that are marketed to children contain the highest levels of banned products and chemicals. And so there is, and I apologize, I can't remember the name of the brand, but there are chemicals in that particular product that are just marketed for Black children, Black girls, that have more harmful chemicals in them than cleaning products do. And they're not regulated by the FDA. And so even though I remember when I was a little girl, I wanted to get my hair permed when I was really young so that I could look like Farrah Fawcett or, you know, some of the women that I saw on TV. But little did I know, or my mom knew, that, you know, what harm those chemicals could bring. There's also products that have been tested that contain fragrance chemicals. And so 84% of the chemicals detected, you know, in some of those tests were not listed on the product label. So we know it's important to read the labels, especially when we purchase food. But if you buy a canned product or canned food, you see a lot of chemicals that have like 5 or 6 syllables that we know are not good for us. And so I always say, if you can avoid buying anything that comes in a box, bag, jar, or can, and eat, I say Whole Foods is not a store where you shop, it's how you eat. So eat foods that are close to their natural state. And if you can't buy fresh produce, then frozen vegetables are the second best choice. But I always shy away from canned foods just because of the chemicals and preservatives that are in canned products, and even those in a jar. And so a lot of the products in that study also contain chemicals called parabens. And parabens are fragrances or non-polyphenols, and diethyl phthalate are commonly found in root stimulators, hair lotions, and hair relaxers. So they're all products that are common to us that we use to texturize our hair or make our hair look a certain way. But again, not being aware of all the harm that it can bring to us. And I always have trouble pronouncing this word, but you guys can read it, and I'll just say they were more frequently detected in anti-frizz products, and also at a higher concentration than any other chemical that was measured. So again, all of these products are in Black hair care products. So it's important to read the labels when you're making a purchase decision about hair care products, food, or anything that can go in or on your body. So next slide, please. So this is a list of chemicals that are associated with some dangerous health effects. You see a lot of the ones listed here are endocrine disrupting, have endocrine disrupting effects related to either the potential risk of exposure to breast cancer or asthma. And so on the far right, you'll see the type of hair care products that those chemicals are in. And a lot, I'm sure, are familiar with to all of us. So whether it's, again, hair relaxer, root stimulator, anti-frizz, leave-in conditioner, hot oil treatments, however we relax our hair. So all of those products that I'm sure a lot of us on this call today use on a daily basis can contain harmful chemicals. So I think it's important to, again, read the label and be aware of the chemicals that are in the products that you're using and the potential health effects associated with those. So next slide, please. And then, so how can we really reduce our exposure knowing all that I just shared? And so you can look for products that not all of them do, but may have on their label that they're paraben-free or fragrance-free, or use products that are made with plant-based or from plant-based origins as opposed to more chemical origins. And then there's an organization in Los Angeles that's called Black Women for Wellness, and they've done a lot of really great research around hair care products related to Black women's health. And there's 14 ways that they talk about that you can reduce your exposure. I believe I also shared that report with Jackie. So you'll be able to review that as well. And then if you really want to find out how you can really focus more on reducing your exposure to harmful chemicals and personal care products, you can download Detox Me or Silent Spring free mobile app for a healthier living. And so there's the URL or the web address there. So there are things that we can do, and we can get access to healthier products. And there's also a website called the Environmental Working Group, or an organization called the Environmental Working Group. And they're probably one of the more trusted resources and reliable sources that you can go to understand more about harmful chemicals and which products can pose the most harm and risk to us. Next slide, please. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about breast cancer risk factors. I mentioned some of the hormone disrupting chemicals that we get exposed to, but I want to talk about it more specifically as it relates to Black women and women of color in general. So next bullet. So what some of the things that you can do is really skip the toxic hair care products. So we can go natural, like myself and my friend Penny, who I have known for almost all my life. Second bullet, please. You can bring your own shampoo to the salon. That was something my mom used to do. when she went to get her hair done. So if you have products that you feel comfortable and are safe, then you can take those to your hair salon. Next bullet. You can avoid nail polishes that include a lot of the toxic, what they call the toxic trio, phthalates, formaldehyde, and toluene. And so there are a few Black women, young Black women, that have launched cosmetic products, some nail polishes that are actually more environmentally friendly and safer. So they're available to purchase as well. Some I think are online, some you can find at some of the retail stores. Next bullet. And you can reduce your use of those products too. Fragrance free. I know we all like to smell good sometimes, but again, using perfumes can also cause a risk to us from a health standpoint. Next bullet. And it's always important, again, whether you're buying food or cosmetics, to make sure you read the labels. And if they don't contain a lot of information or share a lot of information, I think it would be important to do some research. Again, and there's websites that you can go to find out about different products and what chemicals may be in those products that could cause you harm. So websites like Clearia, Think Dirty, I mentioned the Environmental Working Group, or EWG, and Healthy Living, or EWG's Healthy Living are very helpful sites to help you figure out which products may be harmful that you're using. And next. And then you can always go to, again, other trusted third-party sites that often rate personal care products that can help you make better choices and decisions as well. Next slide. So I talked a little bit about fragrances earlier, and fragrances are often made of dozens and sometimes hundreds of chemicals that are often also omitted from the product labels. And so many of these chemicals are not only linked to cancer, but can cause other health issues like acute asthma. So over the long-term, exposure to all of these chemicals really do harm to us and sometimes our children and other loved ones that may be exposed to them. Next slide. And so here's some tips that I would like to share for what you can do to buy fragrance-free or safer scented products. And one, again, I can't stress enough that to read the labels and check the back of your products to see if they're fragrance or perfumes. So the one little word that it says here can really hide dozens, if not hundreds, of secret chemicals. So just be clear about what you're actually purchasing and putting on your skin. Next bullet. And you can always choose products that are fragrance free. Even sometimes there could be a little bit of false advertising. So sometimes they'll say they're fragrance free, but you should still check to make sure they are fragrance free or perfume. Next slide, next bullet. And it's always good to support brands and retailers that are fully transparent about what they're including in their products. Again, not all of them do, but Seventh Generation has been, and I think we've probably seen those at Target, those products at Target. They've always been disclosing all fragrance ingredients that they use in their products since 2007. So some companies are much more socially conscious and environmental friendlier than others. Next bullet. And then I think, there are some women who like to use essential oils, but the recommendation is not to use those that are undiluted directly on your skin, because they can also cause health problems or pose a risk. So next slide. And then so I want to talk a little bit about breast cancer and the environment. And again, these are some products that I want to share that contain chemicals that, again, we may not even be aware of. It's nothing that you can see or taste or touch or smell, but they're in products that we use every day that, unbeknownst to us, can bring us harm and pose health risks. So next bullet. And so BPA, or bisphenol A, is a chemical that is actually used in a lot of products, and especially water bottles. And I know a lot of us try to drink water every day to stay hydrated, and sometimes use water bottles, but it's important to be mindful about whether or not there's BPA in your water bottle. And there's usually a little triangle on the bottom of the water bottle that indicates whether it's BPA free or not. And so human exposure to BPA is commonly not just in water bottles, but through food that we eat, like canned foods. And also when we go to purchase products and use our credit cards, there's the thermal paper receipts that we get back. And BPA is also in those thermal paper receipts. And so sometimes BPA is also known to be associated with an increased risk of mammography density, which is also an increased risk factor for breast cancer, and especially in postmenopausal women. So next slide, please. And then just, you see this picture here of this person reclining and watching TV, which we often do. I know I did that a lot during COVID. And so it's important to be aware of, if you can go to the next bullet, that BPDEs, polybrominated bisphenol ethers, are widely used as flame retardants due to their chemical properties. But these products are found in foams and textiles and plastics and devices that we use on a day-to-day basis, but are also endocrine disrupting chemicals that, again, we can't see, we can't smell, we don't even know they're there, but we get exposure to them every single day, just because of where we're living and what items we may have in our homes. So next bullet. Next slide. So yeah, so I won't go through all 23 of these. I believe Jack is going to share the slides with everyone. But these are through the research that the organization I mentioned, Breast Cancer Prevention Partners, has done. They've been able to identify 23 risk factors for breast cancer that are in things that we get exposed to every day. So again, it's mindful to be aware of what we're encountering every day as we live our lives, whether it's what we put on our skin or what we put in our bodies. Next slide. And a next bullet. Yeah, and so these are some resources. I won't read each one of these on the list, but again, you'll have these to go to if you want to learn more about the work that Black Women for Wellness has done in the Overexposed and Underprotected report, and some of the other, the report I mentioned earlier about Beauty and the Beast. So these will be available to you for your reference if you want to do further research. Next slide. And so I wanted to just wrap up. Hold on, I just need to move this for a second. So yeah, so given the fact that, Black communities we always seem to face higher risk at a lot of things, especially if you watch the news these days. But there's $84 billion that we spend collectively, especially women, on the cosmetics industry. And so a lot of work in California by organizations like Breast Cancer Prevention Partners and also Black Women for Wellness really work to create more protections and safeguards for women, especially Black women, knowing what exposures we are at risk of just basically because of the products that we use. So you can visit the Breast Cancer Prevention Partners website to find out what you can do to take action and learn more about all of the research that they have done around the link between environmental factors and risk, especially as it relates to hair care products for Black women. And so I will wrap up that part and talk a little bit about melanoma and share some information there. So if you go to the next slide. And so, in the beginning, I talked about, what I do at work every day is focus on addressing health disparities. And melanoma, which we all probably don't even think about as African Americans, is something that also happens to us, maybe not as often as it happens to Caucasian people, but like, unfortunately, most other diseases, whether, or any other health condition, whether we're talking about maternal health, Black maternal health and infant mortality, or chronic diseases, or cancer, or rare diseases, and even when it comes to end-of-life issues and access to things like palliative care and hospice care, there are disparities, gaps across the board. And so we, unfortunately, as Black people, tend to suffer more or receive fewer services and lower quality of care when it comes to all of those things. And so Unfortunately, melanoma is no different. And so if you can show the first bullet or the slide here, right? And so this is the answer to one of the quiz questions. So melanoma is the most deadly type of skin cancer, with 75% of all skin cancer deaths in the US attributed to melanoma. Next one. So some of the risk factors for melanoma include exposure to UV light. Some of us have a genetic predisposition, especially lighter skin people. And you know, if you're fair skin or more blonde hair, that also puts you at greater risk. Next bullet. And of course, Caucasians have a 27-fold higher incidence of melanoma, but when we as Black people do get melanoma, our life expectancy and survival rate is about 18% lower than it is for Caucasians or white people. Next bullet. And so, you know, when it comes to African Americans, part of the reason for that disparity is that by the time we are diagnosed, it's a late stage diagnosis. And that also happens in a lot of other forms of cancers, whether it's breast cancer or even prostate cancer in men. And so, unfortunately, the lower incident rate, but we have a higher rate of death. And so that is something that is referred to as the melanoma paradox. It doesn't seem to be well understood, but it's something that happens. And I think probably it's just the fact that, you know, we have darker skin, so we assume that because of that, we don't get as much harm from the sun or being out in the sun as much, but it can happen. And I'll talk about ways that that can happen in just a few minutes on the next slide. And so part of the reason is, you know, there's no campaign, right? When you see commercials on TV about suntan lotion or sunscreen, you know, we're not the ones that are in those commercials. So it's not really targeted for us. And so we, I think as a population, just think that, again, we have that perception that we don't have to worry about it because of our skin. There are some vitamin D differences that may come into effect because of that also. And then just something that, you know, really contributes a lot, at least from my perspective, to the reason why, you know, we've been talking about disparities for decades. It didn't just happen because of COVID. Health disparities has been affecting the Black community for decades, and there's been tons of money, tons of research, tons of programs and projects that have focused on that, but we're still talking about health disparities, and actually it's gotten worse for Black folks, unfortunately, over the few years. And even with COVID, that just exacerbated health disparities for us. And in general, not just in my state where I live now, but across the country, the life expectancy of Black folks is on average about 7 years less than most other race and ethnic groups. COVID has actually widened that gap by about 3 years nationally. In California, for us, it's about 1 to 2 years. And so while we have made gains over the last decade in terms of closing the gap, or at least shortening that gap, we lost some progress because of COVID. So I'm saying all that to say that even though we've been talking about health disparities for decades and nothing's changed, I believe that, you know, that's because we haven't really addressed the root cause of the problem. And that is the racism and racial bias that exists at the system level when we go to seek care from providers that don't necessarily look like us. And so that has bred a lot of mistrust in the community. There's a lot of dark, you know, history when we talk about the medical community and research and experimentation on Black people going all the way back to slavery days. And so it's hard to really have confidence and faith and trust sometimes. And that's part of the reason why we see a lot of vaccine hesitancy too when it comes to COVID and taking the vaccine. So anyway, next slide. And so melanoma in African-American groups commonly occur on non-sun exposed parts of the skin where there's less pigment and less melanin to protect us from the UV radiation that we receive when we're outside. And so out of most of the melanomas in African-Americans, about 60 to 75% occur in places where there's not the dark part of our skin, like our palms, the sole of our feet, maybe even sometimes in the mucous membrane of our noses, and regions that otherwise wouldn't be exposed to the sun but have lighter pigmentation. And so there was a study that was done of 36 African Americans treated in Washington, D.C., and the most common location for their primary cancer tumor was on their foot. So almost 40% was on the area of their foot or a lighter part of their skin where there's not a lot of melanin. Next slide. So I think those are some of the most important, details that we need to know when it comes to melanoma. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'll preface that by saying I'm no doctor, but I'll tell you what I know from the experience that I have in doing the work that I do. And then I just wanted to wrap up by sharing a little bit more information about Breast Cancer Prevention Partners. And I'm on the board of that foundation organization because I believe in the work that they do. Especially when it comes to Black women and preventing Black women from not just getting breast cancer, but from dying from breast cancer too. So I think they've done a lot of amazing work in making the connection between things that we're exposed to in the environment and other environmental factors and the impact that it can have on our health and wellness. So with that, I'll open it up to questions and we'll go from there.
Okay, I want to say, wow, this was so informative, and the messages that were given out in our chat, I'm really, really interested. We're gonna open up for questions. I just wanted to, before we go into the questions, and if you have any questions, you can put the questions in the chat, and I will ask the questions and then give Rhonda the opportunity to answer the questions. I just wanted to share what Frances Dukes put in the chat.
Okay.
She said that her mother was a beautician and that her mother actually passed at the young age of 56. And she actually believed that it did come, that her cancer came from the beauty products that she used. And then Gloria Sproul also said the same thing, similar, that she had a relative that was a part-time beautician. And I just say, wow to everything. I know me personally, my self-care that I do every Friday is go get my hair fixed. So I'm gonna have to look at some alternative ways of getting my own shampoo and bringing some of my own products to the beautician. So at this time, I'm gonna ask you to put your questions in the chat. I believe we have a question already. What are some good shampoos that we can buy for our hair?
Okay, so what I am going to do is send Jackie a list of like all the hair care products that the Breast Cancer Prevention Partners has put on a list so that you guys can have that at your reference so that everybody can get that information for all the different products.
Awesome.
Is that good? Okay.
All right, awesome. Are there any other questions? Okay, here's another question. What are the examples of place-based chemicals that predispose us to breast cancer?
So the first part was, what are some examples?
And it says place-based chemicals that predispose us to breast cancer.
Yeah, so I think if I understand the question right, so I talked about some of those, like when we talk about what we're exposed to in the home, and then sometimes, there are communities where, unfortunately, there are manufacturing plants or industrial facilities that discharge toxic chemicals. Mostly that occurs in underserved communities or under-resourced communities, and they're often Black communities or communities of color. And so sometimes you may see or hear about a cancer cluster which occurs in a Black community, and generally that may be the cause for that. because, unfortunately, the regulation may be a little bit more lax in those communities, because sometimes I think often certain people are viewed as, disposable or not, discounted in some ways compared to other communities. So.
Okay. Are there ways to support the foundation that you sit on the board?
So yes, there are. You can always support the organization that I work for on a daily basis. So yes, you can support Breast Cancer Prevention Partners. And some of you on this call have supported me when I did the peak hike last year, or actually, was that last year or earlier this year? I lost track of time because of the whole COVID thing. But my organization that I work for on a daily basis, we are in the process of launching the campaign for Black Health Equity. So happy to invite you all to support our campaign and the work that we'll be doing over the next 3 years to really improve the life expectancy of Black Californians and close the gap in health disparities, and really make sure that Black people don't die from diseases they shouldn't be dying from unnecessarily. So you have the opportunity to choose between the two if you like.
All right.
And so our website is CA is an abbreviation for California, blackhealthnetwork.org. And you'll see a logo on the website for the campaign for Black Health Equity.
Thank you. All right, another question. Has anyone looked to see how these products affect us in regard to autoimmune diseases like lupus or sarcod?
That's a great question. So I can find out if there is some research related to that through the Breast Cancer Prevention Partners. So I'm happy to get back to you on that. But I think that anytime people suffer from autoimmune disorders, they're compromised anyway. So if you're talking about exposure to harmful chemicals that affect people who are not autoimmune in the way of promoting breast cancer risk or other types of diseases, then I think it just makes it a more vulnerable situation for people who have autoimmune diseases. But I can find out if we have at Breast Cancer Prevention Partners more research on that.
Okay. Another question. Similar to ingredients listed on food labels, are ingredients of hair care products listed strongest to the least?
Not necessarily so. It's just all the products that are in there. Usually not necessarily strongest. Sometimes they do it based on percentage that's in the product, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the strongest.
Okay. And this will be our last question to respect everyone's time. There are some stylists that will not allow customers to bring personal hair care products into the salon. Are there other pre-care treatments that are recommended?
Ooh, that's a great question. So, I mean, you can make a choice. If, you can ask the stylist to, especially if they sell products in their salon, to consider carrying those products. You can always try to go to another salon if you really want to protect your health and wellness and you think that they're using harmful chemicals on your hair. And they're not necessarily willing to work with you to make that change. That would be my suggestion. Maybe it might be time to explore some other options and make a trade-off as to what's really important to you.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, so, I have to ask this question because this is my president. Are you familiar with blood tests that will indicate if there are cancer cells in the body?
So there actually is an organization or a company called GRAIL that has a new technology that it's called a multi-cancer early detection technology that is a blood draw that can detect certain cancers early. So not necessarily going through some of the traditional screening modes. The one caveat with that is that it's not as successful, or I should say, relatively speaking, in testing or screening for early detection when it comes to some of the hormone-driven cancers. But for colon cancer and some of the other cancers, it has been proven to be very effective with the blood draw. So, so you can, it's GRAIL. You can go to their website, it's grail.com, and learn more about their technology. So there is, I know that they are also working with legislators to get a bill passed to use that technology as part of cancer screening, to get adopted as a protocol for how we get screened for certain cancers, in addition to some of the more traditional ways of doing that.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Wow. I'm still in awe and just saying, wow, we have learned so much. And I hope, I'm gonna just say it this time, I'm not even gonna go into what I actually want to say. I'm gonna say this later, but I can tell you that we have been blessed and enriched with full of information on this evening that will have us thinking for a while before we get our nails done. Our hair
did, yeah.
Our hair did. Yes, that's exactly what I was gonna say. Our hair did. Because
That's tomorrow.
that's the look. I'm not vain.
That's 11:30 tomorrow.
That's the thing that I'm vain on. And I do go to the hairdresser every Friday. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We are going to have our post-assessment test at this time and the results. So throughout the actual presentation, I hope that you saw these questions and now you can answer them with confidence.
So we're gonna give scores, or like how everybody did on the test?
Gonna ask.
And sorry about the lighting, I just realized that it got darker here and my light went away. So sorry for the shade.
Are you able to pull that up, Vera?
Yes, I can
Okay,
show you
thank
the results.
Yes, all right. Being natural is free, but natural takes work. Penny, I saw you put that in there. Because look, when I go to the hairdresser on Friday, I don't comb my hair again. So the natural people, they work hard.
It's not that much work.
We are so thankful for this information. I'm telling you. I know everyone is just enriched and will share this information with people.
And who is that? Thank you, Vicki, for calling me Dr. Smith, but I am not a doctor. And I live in LA, but don't play one on TV either. So anyway, so I know you guys are going to wrap up. I just wanted to say, again, thank you for the opportunity. It's such a pleasure to see so many familiar faces and some surprises, of people who I was not expecting to see. So thank you all for joining tonight and giving me the opportunity. So I'm going to skedaddle. I have a friend who is having heart surgery tomorrow, and they're out there, giving her a pump up party. So I am going to go join them so that I can give her some love too and give her some encouragement before her heart surgery tomorrow. And she's important to me because for those of you who really know me, she was the one who actually brought Meatball into my life. So I have to pay my due respects.
Thank you.
Right.
That would be my niece Meatball. Yes.
Yes.
We just want to thank you so much. Before you leave, we have our president wants to say thank you. I hope and pray that you have read all of the comments in the chat. Everyone is saying how informational this webinar has been information that they did not know. They were really thankful for you. We're proud of you. I say we're proud of you, what you're doing in California. Those of us that really have known you all of our lives, we really thank you for the information. If I could just let our president and also Jacqueline, who was over our umbrella committee, just say that to you before you leave.
Great.
Well, well, Rhonda, I
That's
just don't
Dwayne
know.
Hoffler.
Yes, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing
Good.
all right.
Good to see you.
Thank you. Good seeing you too. I didn't know you were in California, but we can do that later. I knew we needed to hear this, but we didn't want to hear it at the same time. And some of the things you were saying, we had no idea about. The blood test, because of the cough that I've had for over 10 years, I asked the doctor about it right when I got married. I said, 'cause I need to know. And he said that I did not have cancer cells in my body. So now I've been coughing 13 years at least. And so I'm getting ready to do something else. But Rhonda, this is a food for thought. And I know one of my cousins is going to get me because she's gone natural. And I'm going at 11:30 tomorrow morning. I have an appointment. So tomorrow afternoon it'll be different. Sorry, I didn't know. But thank you definitely for this wealth of information. And I am sure we will give you calls, emails, and everything else to get some other other information. And I love you. I've known you all of your life, even though you were not. I've known you through church all of your life. But thank you. Thank you so very much.
And thank you.
And I'll talk with you later. Okay.
Rhonda, I know you have to leave. I will be in contact with you so that you can get with your friends, and please give her our well wishes and our prayers of wisdom for surgery. So again, thank you. I will be in contact with you. I don't want to hold you any longer. I will just say, once you're able to sign off, I'll thank the rest for joining us tonight. So thank you.
And we'll say Rhonda's friend.
Have a good night. Good to see everybody.
You
Thanks.
too.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. All right, so
I'd like to say thanks to everyone for joining us tonight. To the support of our chapter members, thank you for your time tonight, and for the other 2 webinars that we've been able to bring to our community. You all have been very supportive. To the Health and Human Chair Facet, Gloria, Dr. Johnson, thank you. Dr. Spruill, thank you for the partnership and the facets that have come together to make these webinars a success. I do want to thank also, I think Wesley may be gone, but our Arts Facet Chair, Dr. Deborah Austin, was responsible for securing him. So again, thanks to all of you for your support of our webinars. This is the last one for our program year, and we look forward. Please also know that each of the webinars that we have offered this program year are on our chapter's YouTube channel. And so if you have anyone who was not able to be here tonight, the link will be on the YouTube channel for you all to go in. And we did have some chapter members to say they could not join us tonight, but it's there. Please share the information. And again, thank you for joining us. And to our president, thank you for support as well.
And Wesley's mother is still up here. She just put that in the chat about the webinar. So we thank Andrea for allowing her son to participate in our webinars and just bless us with the gift of music.
Yes.
You are very welcome. I tell you, this has been awesome. I appreciate you all inviting Wesley, but the information that I have gained personally, my mother as well, through all of the seminars and webinars that you have given have been just phenomenal. So I appreciate the invite.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And again, this has been so informational. We did not touch on a specific type of cancer, but the information was just so rich and thought-provoking. Again, that I'm sure we will look at our products carefully. We will choose care items much more carefully in the future than we have in the past. We thank our umbrella committee chair, Jacqueline Calanda, for all of her effort in getting these webinars out. And we thank our chapter again. I want to put up, if we could put it, because kind of went through that really quick, the post assessment for one minute so that you can read through to ensure that everyone gleaned all that they wanted to get from it. So the answer to number one, the answer is actually true. So 90% of the people did say true. The answer to number two is false. False because where it says human exposure to bisphenol occurs primarily through exposure to the sun. That answer is false because it comes primarily through food consumption and through skin contact with thermal paper. 3, all products that are fragrance-free are normally safe. And the answer to that is also false. And that's because even products that claim to be fragrance-free may have on their label sneaky fragrance or perfume. 4, fragrances are made up of dozens, sometimes hundreds of chemicals that are emitted from personal care and cleaning product labels. And everyone had that correct. Awesome. And then 5, nail polishes that include formaldehyde, toluene, and dietol should be avoided, and that answer is true. So we thank you for participating in our post-assessment. We are at the end. Our president has already had her thank you, our closing remarks. If she has something else she'd like to say. If not, we would like to thank all of our members, all of our guests. I saw some guests on the line. We would also like to thank Wesley, his mother, his grandmother, his teacher, and also the director of the Jubal Arts, Cecilia Robinson. We thank you for attending. We thank you if you did have the opportunity to attend all 3 webinars that we had this year. We hope that they have been informative, they have enlightened you, and have really been a blessing to you. So we thank you for joining us, and this will end our webinar season on cancers for this year.
Link Pamela, thank you, because you have actually facilitated each of our webinars. And so thank you for the job that you have done as well. Great job.
Oh, thank you.